Schultz.
Here.
All commissioners are present today.
Thank you. Item 3A, approved planning commission agenda. I think you should have all received an updated item that should be added to the agenda tonight as 7B. Did everybody get that email?
Yep.
Does anyone have an objection to adding that to the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. With that then, I'd like a motion to approve the planning commission agenda as amended.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It is approved. Item 3B, approve the minutes of the planning commission held February 25th, 2025. Any changes, additions, corrections that you would like to have noted?
I think under roll call, I do believe that Commissioner Lane was here.
That must have been the time.
Yes, I believe I was.
Good call.
I'll make that change.
Any other changes, corrections, or additions? Motion?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes have been approved. Item 3C, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Anyone have anything to disclose tonight? Seeing none. Item 3D, disclosure of outside communications regarding commission business. Other than the email that you all got today. Okay, nothing to disclose. Item 4, call the public. Members of the public who wish to address the planning commission regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Any presentations for informational purposes only, no action will be taken. There's a 4-minute time limit. If you'd like to address the planning commission, please come to the podium, give us your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Tanner McNamara. Address is 33160 West 83rd Street here in DeSoto. I'm here to speak about our land on Sunflower Road. We have some concerns with what is being proposed, specifically with the proposed future land use plan. The current land use plan intends our property on Sunflower Road to be light industrial, and that is consistent with the adjacent properties that are also light industrial on that plan. The proposed future land use plan, recently completed by Confluence, changed our future zoning from industrial to light residential. So this is a significant change and will have a significant impact on the value of the property. So our property proposes to be residential, but it is directly adjacent to industrial property currently in use to the north and industrial property to the east. Additionally, the current land being used as light industrial adjacent to our land for Lumber 1 is also proposed to be rezoned to residential. So I'll just read the land where Lumber 1 is currently is also proposed to be rezoned to light residential. So there seems to be some inconsistency in the future plan. We just want this commission to be aware of the inconsistencies so that the future plan is reviewed in detail. We would also just like to ask if you can answer when that future land use plan is going to be on the agenda.
I don't remember when we,
Roger, interesting, Mr. Chairman. It will be on the April agenda for the presentation for the Southwest Growth Area Plan, which the Planning Commission will recommend to the City Council. Now, your rezoning request is also on that same agenda. So,
well, I guess we'll see you then.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the planning commission for items, regarding items not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'll close the call to the public. Item 5A, public hearing to consider a special use permit for concrete batch plant Geiger Concrete. Brad?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commissioners. We've got a little bit of ground to cover on this. We did bring this to you as an informational item at the previous meeting, and now we are at the stage of the public hearing. Like I said, we've got a lot of information to go through. As you know, Geiger has been operating a concrete batch plant on the Panasonic site. They were given a short-term special use permit so they could sell concrete, not just for Panasonic, but also in the area as well. At this point, they have found a location that they would like to have their permanent concrete batch plant. It is on 10680 Evening Star. It's about a half mile south of 103rd Street on Evening Star Road. The site has been now rezoned to M1. The city council did approve the rezoning. That was before you last meeting. So the concrete batch plant can proceed with a special use permit, which is what we are looking at making a recommendation to the city council on tonight. So we've gone through the perfunctory steps, putting up the signs, notifying members, putting in the advertisement in the paper. Also, the applicant has turned in information. It's Todd Geiger, Geiger Concrete, and his legal counsel, Chad Tenpenny, is here tonight. They would also like to address the Planning Commission, Mr. Chairman, after completion of my staff report. We do have two sort of steps to go through with the special use permit. There's the site plan elements that we'll talk about, and then it's the land use elements that we go through for a special use permit and for zoning types of issues. So with the information provided, you do have a detailed site plan, you have traffic trip information, landscaping, buffering plans, suggested road improvements, lighting plan. We'll talk about public safety concerns. Also, I did want to let you know I did visit the Geiger concrete plant in Kansas City, Kansas. It's very similar in the operation side of what they're going to do. It's got the below ground bins and conveyor belt system. Also went into the office building that they have there. They've got a very high-tech system. They're tracking their trucks. They know where they're at. They know where the bottlenecks are, the delivery systems. It's really a well-run, operated location. Also wanted to tell you, I mean, it was relatively quiet. Yes, it's near an interstate, so there's noise, there's trucks rumbling around, but you could talk and have a conversation, be outdoors. It wasn't like it was jackhammering or anything like that. It was once again, it's a well-run operation, and that's the type of situation that they're wanting to bring to DeSoto. Also, I did contact you remember Chad, Belcher is the Community Development Director in Olathe. Geiger has a plant in Olathe. Asked him about any concerns that they may have had. I also talked to David Allman at Shawnee, where the Penny's concrete batch plant is on K7 and 83rd Street. The only complaints they really have received from citizens is the slow-moving trucks. And that is just sort of the nature of the beast. And it's really not a safety issue. It's just a matter of inconvenience at times. You get stuck behind a heavy concrete truck. So there are really no concerns raised by either one of those as well. Did want to show you the aerial of the site locations. You can see it's a half mile south of 103rd Street along Evening Star, and then also the existing zoning. It's all rural ag around that site, and the northern portion has been, half of the site is basically light industrial. The northern portion remains C2, which was rezoned last year. As far as the summary itself, there's going to be an 8,400 square foot concrete batch plant, wash rack area, trucks, large truck, concrete trucks parking, 68 square foot office building, and they'll be doing some of the maintenance of the trucks as well on site, which is why there's 3 maintenance bays planned. 39 parking spaces. They have handicap spots. They've included landscape elements all the way around the site. That's something that came up at our previous meeting in February about some of the concerns Planning Commission had. The front fencing will be ornamental with masonry columns. I do have a picture in the staff report of what that'll look like. That's what they have at the Kansas plant. Stormwater management, there is a detention pond, and then they'll be adding sidewalks on this front. And of course, utility connections include electric, storm, sewer, gas, water line. They will have a septic system for the building itself. As far as the architectural standards, we did talk quite a bit about the building. It's the office building, and there is a picture of the Liberty location, which will be exactly like what this one's going to be. I did suggest and did send out today some revisions to make some more color variations to the building itself, so it's not all just one color. Now, there is texturing, there's glass, there's the emphasis on the front entries, but they did change the colors of the doors and add some different color tonations of the building, so it does meet the criteria for our architectural standards in the city code. The one thing that is going to be a little bit of a challenge, or will be a challenge, is the batch plant itself. Now, the batch plant will be enclosed entirely, and it is a large building. It's 87 feet tall, and it will be something you will see from the road. Now, it is 300 feet, it's 100 yards from the edge of the road. So one thing that I have been rather studying is, as I've driven around the metro area, not just looking at concrete batch plants. I know it's kind of, it's what you gotta do, but other large structures as well. And what I've found is, at least this is my opinion, obviously we have a citizen advisory board that will make this recommendation, but it seems like the large buildings like this, you don't wanna have a lot of architectural features. You don't wanna draw attention to them. You just kinda wanna have them blend into the background. And that's really what they're proposing. I did talk to their architect. Are there some things you could potentially do? And there are, but once again, you're up 87 feet in the air. It's a large structure. I don't know that we want to try to force something on something that isn't worth forcing it on. So once again, that'll be a discussion that you will want to have. I believe your architect is available online, so if there's any questions for that, certainly feel free to ask them. But they have done some things as far as the base material and adding some trim around the building itself. There are some windows on the large batch plan as well, but when you think about the offset of not having the batch plan enclosed and looking at all the equipment, it's my thinking it'd be better just to have the big building and a very benign color scheme for it. There will be some signs on the building. There won't be any signs on the batch plan itself. They have included a photometric plan and a landscape plan, which meets our standards. As I mentioned, there's ornamental fencing on the west, on the east side of the property, which will extend 200 feet each direction, north and south. So there is a concession there as far as additional fencing. And then, of course, there will be some roadways that will be built. There will be some road dedications that will have to occur, and the property will need to be platted. So with that, if you want to talk a little bit about the site plan standards, they have met our criteria, or I can just keep moving into the matters of consideration. So I can stop right now if you'd like to ask a few questions about the site plan elements. But once again, the SUP is all these things tied together. So if there is some significant change to the building itself, or the operations, or the fencing, or the landscape, it'll have to come back to the Planning Commission. So it's, in essence, it's all rolled up into one package, but we do look at the site plan issues and then also the special use permit process that's in our city code.
So Brad, one question, the new elevations that you sent out this morning, was that for the office and maintenance building?
Yeah, it's just for the office and maintenance building.
Okay, so there's no changes to the batch plant building?
Correct.
Okay.
How tall is the batch plant?
87 feet. And just for reference, it's about the same
86
size as the
11.
Panasonic building, so Panasonic is a little bit over 90, as I recall.
It's a tall building. Any other questions for Brad on this element of the full report?
Did Brad, did you mention something about a traffic study that was included?
Well, I guess there was the traffic counts. It wasn't a
Okay.
full-blown traffic analysis. I did speak with Joe, and he just wanted to have those base numbers. I mean, the interesting issue about Evening Star is there is virtually no traffic on that road. And so adding 250 to 300 trips a day really is not much of an impact, but
Okay.
nonetheless, you need to have those quantified, just so you know. And those are peak operations as well, on a very busy day. Obviously, there'll be days when it's cold in the winter, there won't be any operations or very few.
Right. Okay. And the paving at Evening Star goes to where?
It will go from the south end of the property all the way up to the traffic circle at Evening Star. So it's approximately 25, it'll be a half a mile of paving, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so from the end of their property up to the traffic circle.
Correct.
Hey, Brad, are those improvements at Evening Star, are they included in the recommendation?
Well, I guess, yeah, they will be. I mean, they're part of the package itself, but yeah, if you would like to add that as a specific recommendation.
I think it's in there, I see it.
Well, certainly I could proceed, Mr. Chairman, and then as additional questions and comments come up, we can.
Please proceed.
All right, so the review of the matters to be considered, first thing is character of the neighborhood. As I mentioned, it's a half mile south of 103rd Street on Evening Star Road. It is a very rural area. There are not many residences nearby, about a half mile is probably the nearest residence. The area for the special use permit is 50 total acres, but only 12 acres will be utilized. The back 3 acres will remain. I did get a comment from a resident that wanted to have the trees along the fence row to remain, and so that was a recommendation in the staff report. And I did talk to the applicant about it, and they've agreed they would like to have those trees remain as well. Compatibility of the proposed zoning, we talked about, it's zoned M1 now, and this is an appropriate use in M1 with a special use permit. But like I said, we talked about the building, the roads will be paved, need to be paved, and there's stormwater provided, all the applicable things that we typically require for a site plan are in this. I guess my reservation is this is the first thing out there. So it's not like we have much to compare it to. It's just vacant farm ground, essentially, on a gravel road. So there isn't a whole lot of there aren't any similar uses, but ultimately, as we know, the sunflower property will get developed to a much higher level as well. The extent of the need in the community, the comprehensive plan talks about promoting and encouraging new business. This will be a new business in DeSoto. As you recall, we did approve a concrete batch plant on Gardner Road and 83rd Street. That plant has not moved forward at all, and it's still just a sand operation at this time. As far as the utilities, I did talk to you a little bit about the services that they would need. Water 7 did provide a letter. Atmos Energy provided a letter for availability of, obviously, electric services there. Sanitary sewer will be provided by us. Septic system, ingress and egress, pavement will be provided. There will be 2 lanes of the road, and we're going to have to also talk about this, the potential expressway that might be coming down this road, but the applicant has indicated that they'll, and city staff agrees to pave 2 lanes. That's probably the east half, pardon me, the west half of that road. If there's additional lanes to be built, they will be on the other side. So the operations could continue while a new roadway would be potentially built with higher traffic volumes. Once again, this is a long-range plan, but we do look at those items, and we've talked about that in our land use plan. It does show that expressway heading south through the Astra site. As far as would it affect the capacity of safety of the road network? I guess I kind of covered some of those things, but this is where the trips came into play. There could be up to as many 200 trips a day plus employee and delivery parking. So there could be 8 to 10 an hour, and 50 to 75, at a peak time. And once again, some days there could be absolutely none. So that's sort of the challenge of this type of use. Obviously during the summer, construction times, you're going to have a lot of traffic. Colder, non-construction times, there can be absolutely nothing, but on average, it's probably pretty much in the middle of the road. So that's another sort of challenge why we have special use permits for these type of items. As far as environmental impacts, stormwater detention is required. We'll do the screening, landscaping, buffering, all the things. There is a photometric plan in the plan. One thing that is the applicant would like to address the planning commission about is the hours of operation. As you know, obviously in the middle of the summer in Kansas, it can get really hot, and they would like some consideration to start before 5 a.m. But right now they're operating 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the Panasonic site, and so that's what I have recommended, and also from 5 a.m. to noon on Saturday with no operations on Sunday except without a 48-hour notice approved by the city administrator here. So that's the discussion item. I think the applicant would like to address the planning commission about the hours of operation. Economic impact, and once again, talked about new businesses in DeSoto. There would be 15 to 20 full-time jobs. There'd be $15 million investment, so there'd be certainly property taxes that'll be paid into DeSoto. And as we talked about last month, sales tax would be generated as well, but only for in DeSoto sales. So if it goes to Eudora, Douglas County, or unincorporated Johnson County, the city would not receive any sales tax. But nonetheless, all the work that would potentially happen at Astra Development is in city limits, and that would certainly provide sales tax for City of DeSoto. I talked a little bit about how this may be detrimental to the properties nearby. 40 years ago, the ammunition plant was operating in full capacity. It's now been dormant in that use, but this is now, here we are coming full circle, and these types of uses will be coming back. This is an operation that's really it's pretty necessary to have this type of development and having a concrete plant nearby. It's a brick and mortar type of issue. It'd be good for DeSoto to have this, but once again, there's challenges to having these things with trucks and traffic, and but the challenge that for you and all of us is this is the first thing in this area that will be like this, and how do we balance that against all the future plans and growth that we have for this area? We'll talk a little bit, next month about the southwest growth area and things like that. So we really have to try to keep our eyes and ears and our visions clear about how something like this could blend itself into the fabric of the area and not create a problem. But as I had mentioned, the Geiger plant on Old 56 Highway doesn't seem to be a problem. I don't live too far from there. I drive past it all the time, and it's really not much of an issue at all. So that's, once again, just a little bit of color from my personal experience. And it is consistent with the comprehensive plan as far as the future land use plan. It does show this area is light industrial, and this is part of the process of approving concrete batch plan is going through all these steps and procedures. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll conclude my presentation, stand for any questions you have, and then the applicant would like to address Planning Commission as well.
Thank you. Questions for Brad?
I got two. They're not related at all. Do we know why the plant on 83rd hasn't spun up operations? I know we had the road tore up for most of the summer.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Actually, Geiger, they know more about the business than I do, but I know that I think the Hams actually has been sold, and there's some issues with, do they want to make that investment of paving Gardner Road to the back of the entryway, and the sand plant is operation. The reason that the turn lanes were added is because the sand plant finished their first phase and moved into phase two, and that was part of the special use permit to pave the additional lanes.
Brett,
Go ahead.
you talked about the consideration for a possible future thoroughfare through this area, and which would require more than the 40-foot of right-of-way being dedicated.
That is correct. And Mike, maybe you want to bring up the planning commission. You've had some talks with the county or
Yeah,
about
so
how all this is going.
several things at play, as we know. KDOT did a study on K10 and identified that Evening Star interchange is a likely connection point if there ever was a connection between K10 and I-35 or Gardner, somewhere that would be a good spot to connect to. City's in the middle of a multi-jurisdictional study about roadway corridors in the area. We're not quite ready, it's still in draft form, but it's identified this alignment along the east property line, Evening Star Road, as one for an arterial or some type of a connector there. Probably not your highway grade separated, K10 type state highway, but more like a local arterial connector has been identified. And in that that document recommends right-of-way widths of 100 to 120 feet. And so the plan here shows 40. We probably would need at least 50, or maybe even 60 feet of right-of-way dedication. Regardless of the improvements that are going in, I think, the construction of the 2-lane section, I think is reasonable at this time. There's no way we're going to predict exactly what the geometry of that future roadway is going to be, even if we could. But the right-of-way width does seem a bit narrow at 40. I think it's a bit narrow.
So are we going to ask them to preserve the place, or ask them to agree to future dedication of the needed right-of-way there?
Yeah,
Is that a reasonable request?
Well, I think it is reasonable. I mean, you could also, when it comes time to plat it, require the additional platted right of way here. The good thing about this site is that it's in no way contingent on that 20 feet. The building is set back. There's plenty of room there. So I think there's plenty of leeway for those discussions to happen at platting, or you could have an additional recommendation here on the use permit.
Yeah, Commissioner Huggins, my thinking was to do it at plating, but as Mike pointed out, you could add that recommendation that the additional right-of-way be added at this time as far as the site plan approval.
And this may be something for the future also. And I know you're getting some new concrete streets in here now. And I'm sure Joe knows all about taking care of concrete streets. But, I've seen a lot of problems with cities not taking care of concrete streets. Is that a consideration for Public Works, or? I know you've already got a whole bunch that's been added out there already, so.
With the exception of what got built with 103rd Astra, they used a hard rock, different than what we typically spec, but the typical specs that we've got is a hard rock granite or quartzite. So in the cities that have been put in, we've had really good reliability and it lasts. So different than what you've seen with some of the softer limestone. So we would anticipate, it's a little harder to maintain than asphalt. But right now, the mixed designs that we're using, Geiger's one of them that provides it. With the hard rock, we're having good success and longevity with the concrete pavement.
Thank you.
Hey, Brad, two more questions from me. The improvements to Evening Star, would that be paid for by Geiger?
Yes, but they're working on a benefit district with the additional members of that tract.
Okay.
So,
And then were the neighbors notified for the special use permit?
yes.
Did you get any calls?
I did have one gentleman came in and we talked for a little bit. He was the one that asked about the trees
Okay.
and the tree line. And he also asked about, was the road going to get paved, and was concerned about dust and some lighting. But the lighting will, as the photometric plan shows, will be shielded downward, and
Road's gonna be paved, so it'll keep a lot of the dust down as well.
My other question was gonna be about the roundabout that I think is on 103rd and Evening Star. Is that the city's?
Yes.
And the timing anywhere close to what these guys are gonna end up being, or no? I don't know.
It's done.
Oh, is it done?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see it in the aerial shots here, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's, in the last several months, open to traffic.
Brad, just because I don't remember and because I'd like to be consistent, what special use permit hours did we allow for the last sand plant?
The sand plant, well, yeah, the sand plant has nearly, yeah, they don't have Sunday operations. They do have more on Saturday afternoon. They do go up to 4 o'clock, I believe, on Saturday. And they don't quite start as early either. I think they're 6 a.m. because they're not mixing things. They're just, and they're a mining operation, so they have some different criteria as far as the items that we had to
As far
require
as
for them.
the conditions we put on the special use permit for the concrete plant there, are those inconsistent with what we're talking about here in terms of the hours?
No.
Okay.
I thought the council made a recommendation to adjust the hours, though.
I don't recall. I mean, I guess there's nothing that says they have to be the same, they're different pieces of property. I was just curious, because I don't remember.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've spoken with the applicant about is, you know, the operation at Garden Road and 83rd Street. 83rd Street's a really busy road. And so there was concerns about the traffic on that road and when they'd be operating. This one is, you know, a very limited situation. So the amount of vehicles traveling isn't nearly as much of a concern here as it was on 83rd Street.
As sort of follow-up to that, did we do a 20-year for them as well?
Well, now I'd have to go back. I believe it is 20 years.
Okay.
But they also have, I mean, their first approval, and we have some discussion with the owner about what he believes it's in perpetuity, and I don't know that we're quite there yet either. So there was, and that was in the late 90s when that whole deal was put together.
You're in the same.
And maybe, I don't know, Patrick, if you remember what those stipulations were as far as Dave Penny was concerned on his special use permit. I know you've had a lot of talk with their attorney.
Right now, so I can let you know here in just a few. Chairman, if you're okay, I'll share. I'm looking at the ordinance, so they're prohibited from operating the concrete backer plant outside the hours of 2 a.m. until 5 p.m. on any day of the week.
So 2 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Correct.
Did that have a term on it? How long was the permit?
10 years.
I didn't think it was 20. I mean, it's a different situation. I'm not saying it should necessarily be the same, but I was just curious as to consistency. Okay.
I guess I'll follow up, Mr. Chairman. The reason I came up with the 5 a.m. is that's what they're operating now with
Yeah.
Panasonic. But once again, the applicant would like to address this issue with
In
you.
fact, remember, part of that too was 2 a.m. 83rd Street actually doesn't have a lot of traffic on it, so it was kind of not a
Yeah.
bad idea for them to get out. So, I mean, it's just a different situation in time.
Exactly.
Thank you. Any other questions for Brad? So I understand the applicant wants to address the planning commission. It's at your pleasure whether you want to do that or not.
I'm up for it.
Chad, you're on.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name is Chad Tenpenny. I reside in Leawood, Kansas, and I serve as the general counsel for Geiger Ready Mix. It's good to be in front of you again and maybe summarize and repeat a couple things, but it's good to have on the record. CEO Todd Geiger is here to answer any of your questions as we go through this. And before I turn more of the presentation over to our consulting engineer, Mark Brewer, I do want to review a couple key items. Thank you, Brad, for your counsel, comments, and for visiting the Geiger Ready Mix plant here a couple weeks ago. As Brad indicated, we are asking for a special use permit for 20 years at 103rd and Evening Star, and it's a state-of-the-art, high-tech fixed batch plant. As you may recall, Geiger is a 133-year-old company with roots in Leavenworth, and it has 7 ready-mix concrete batch plants in the Kansas City area, including one on the Astra site, as we mentioned, that you all granted a special use permit in July of 2024. When production begins, if you do approve a permit, when production begins at 103rd and Evening Star, the special use permit at Astra will go away. Geiger employs over 250 team members and at least a dozen here in DeSoto, and we're hiring. First-year drivers can make up to $80,000 a year. Experienced drivers can make $100,000 with benefits. And the company motto is on time and hustle. In February, we discussed a few items. First, you'll see from the photos that this is a state-of-the-art plant specifically engineered to minimize both noise and dust. It's a warehouse-like structure, and 90% of all of the production activities occur in the enclosed facilities. The need for the material stockpiles are limited due to the underground bunkering system, and Mark will demonstrate how that bunkering system is located away from Evening Star and then buffered by those line of trees to the west. And when Brad visited the KCK plant, we stood in the yard and took a conscious moment to just stop and listen. And literally the highway running by us was what's much more noise than the plant was producing. Would like to mention traffic, and this location is attractive to Geiger due to its proximity to K10, the recent improvements to 103rd Street, and then the potential for that traffic way on the Evening Star alignment to the south. This is the far western part of the city, and it is specifically planned for this reason, and we are committed to working with developers Dave Anderson and GWL to invest over $1.5 million and pave with concrete Evening Star Road. The DeSoto Chamber of Commerce estimates that over 3,500 cars per day travel in and out of the Panasonic site, and most of these occur during the rush hour. Geiger estimates that at max we'd be right around 200, and those would be spread out through the workday. So we're talking less than 20 an hour. That's a small fraction compared to Panasonic down the road. Furthermore, Geiger is already producing some traffic at the Panasonic site, so really this is just shifting the Geiger traffic from Panasonic over to Evening Star. Hours of service is an important issue to the business and to the public, really. 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. is our general time, but there will be occasions where it's good for us to start earlier. For example, extreme heat conditions. Our customers want concrete earlier in the day, so we need to get started earlier. None of our other locations have restrictions on start times. The other item is that KDOT work, and this is a discussion we have with them. It is not our preference to do night work, but KDOT will at times demand we do work at night because the public doesn't want us out on K10, for example, during rush hour. So we do ask for some variance on the hours of operation. Finally here, DeSoto is a bit of a concrete desert. Right now we're shipping in from Lawrence or Shawnee, and with a plant here on Evening Star Road, Geiger will be well positioned to help construct future development in DeSoto. in the city limits or on Astra, and it'll give this community a competitive advantage as it seeks to efficiently build for the future. All told, Geiger estimates that he's going to invest $15 million in order to locate and construct this facility, and bring hundreds of thousands of dollars of property income and sales tax to the city over the next 20 years. And that's why we're asking for the 20 years is the amount of investment. We need to amortize that and recoup the significant investment. But for a more technical review, I'll invite our engineer, Mark, up to go through a few slides. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mark Brewer with Schlegel, 14920 West 107th in Lenexa. I'll try to just give a recap. I think everybody was here last month when we kind of went through the operations of the plant, of a typical plant, and then kind of update on the changes we've made since that last meeting. But the slide in front of you today, kind of just wanted to point out kind of the general elements of this being the plant itself with the conveyor to the underground storage system, office maintenance building here, and then kind of the outside storage. This will be very typical to the DeSoto plant. I'll ask Mr. Brungart if he can advance.
Oh, just one, right?
We can probably skip these. I think we've recovered or already covered where this site's at and kind of how it fits with the comprehensive plan now that we have our zoning in place. Again, this is the site and the comprehensive plan around it, but I think staff has kind of covered where we're at with that to date, so I won't belabor that anymore. But so here's our latest site plan, very similar to what we presented last month. We've added a couple elements, a fueling area here, a small washout area here, but generally trucks still coming in off North Drive entrance off Evening Star into the plant, loading completely uncovered inside the plant itself through overhead doors, leaving the plant here to the slump station. They test the slump of the concrete, quality control procedures that they have for every load, and then a little washout area here, and then the truck leaves the site for delivery. So everything's still very similar to what we presented last month. Here's the recycle, the washout area for the trucks where they recycle the water. Still our detention area. This is still open, preserved area with this vegetation not being disturbed. The landscape plan's been updated to address some of the buffering requirements on the north. This calls out extending that ornamental fence 200 feet back on both sides. We did, I think, working with the developer of the property, the section to date, I think showed an 80-foot right-of-way for Evening Star for that half road improvements. And so we did adjust that landscaping plan to pull, because we initially last month showed a 60-foot right-of-way. So we pulled that back to match that proposed section that we're working with, or the developer's engineers working with city staff on. But again, have room on site to move that where it needs to be if that's the recommendation that you guys want to go ahead and set that right-of-way aside now before, as we move through the platting process. We've talked about the utilities on site pretty extensively with District 7 and Atmos and the septic system. So all this stuff is pretty similar to the elements we presented last month. And so I guess I'll stand for any questions you might have with any of these updates. But I think everything's been covered so far between Chad and Brad's presentation.
Just a question for my orientation. Top of this sheet is north.
Correct.
Okay, and then batch plant is the larger building in the center.
This is the batch plant here. And this is the underground storage area.
Okay.
And these are the conveyors. This is the office maintenance building here with the maintenance area here and the office area here.
Got it. Thank you.
And I have those updated elevations in this presentation if you have any more questions on those, but I think those are kind of covered as well in the staff report or the staff presentation.
Tractor trailer traffic will likely come in from the north entrance and then dump. Okay.
Correct,
And
yeah.
then maybe some car traffic down below there.
that's the intent, is to separate the car and employee traffic down here at this lower parking lot. And then truck traffic under here, there will be material delivery trucks, cement delivery trucks, and then of course the concrete trucks that come through for the load and take out deliveries.
Thank you.
I've got one question. So you're gonna account for the runoff that goes west in the detention basin? Or are you gonna have a second basin?
So this, you can kind of tell this quadrant here goes this way, and we're at the top of a local watershed. So what we've done with the grading plan is kind of take some of this area and move the high point back. And this also is surrounded by curb and gutter to where we're collecting a lot of this runoff and moving it over back to the detention basin this way. And then this is mainly undisturbed from existing conditions. So by leaving this back third pretty much undeveloped, and then switching some of the watershed areas, tweaking those slightly with the increased impervious area for this portion, we were able to balance those discharge rates.
I have a question for Mr. Tenpenny.
Sir.
You mentioned looking for some flexibility on hours of operation. How would you propose anything different than what Brad has in his report would be handled?
Well, having the flexibility to deliver early in the morning is important, and I don't know what concepts.
Well, I guess, Commissioner, my thinking was, and we do need some sort of guardrails as far as hours of operation. And so I didn't think 24/7 was something the planning commission would be interested in. It certainly wasn't something I was interested in. But I do want to, give them the flexibility to operate as they need. It did seem, and once again, I latched onto, that's the current situation what they're operating on. So that's what I've recommended to the planning commission. But as pointed out, we do have a potential 2 a.m. start for the batch plant that we did. Planning commission did recommend approval to council.
It does seem to me this is, the special use permit is the time when we need to establish.
Yeah, I would agree with that, yes.
And I guess I'm not trying to propose how this will be handled. I guess we already have provided staff the opportunity to approve Sunday work.
That is correct, yes.
So would you see it maybe being along the same lines, only with special permission, could the plant be opened outside the hours of 5 in the morning to 6 at night?
Yeah, and Chad, maybe you want to talk this,
Yeah,
but there's, I guess the time frame is a little bit different. A Sunday operation is fairly unusual, even when we talk to the Ham folks. Those happen quite rarely. They were okay with the 48-hour notice, but obviously the 2 a.m. or potentially 3 a.m. start is also, I understand, it takes about an hour to get the concrete up and running, and so the deliveries wouldn't start till potentially 5 a.m., but the employees start getting in around 4 and getting the plant operational. So those activities would still be able to occur under this, the hours of operation. I was thinking more along the delivery times.
So the hours of operation would only apply to making deliveries?
Correct, yes.
I would jump in and note a couple of things. Number one, Panasonic and Flint, to my knowledge, don't have any restrictions, and there'll be traffic in and out of there all hours of the day. I think it's maybe proposed, it was discussed last time, that on this corner there'll be a 24/7 gas filling station, so there will be traffic in the area. Beyond that, yeah, that 2 a.m. Range, but I guess our request would be, yeah, there will be times that we would like to operate It won't be a 24/7 operation. We don't want that. We can't do that because hours of service by the Federal Department of Transportation. But there may be times that we'd want to operate early in the morning.
So,
Can
Go
we
ahead.
build anything in as far as temperature? You guys said that temperature is what the element that would incur this, so can you?
That's part of it for sure.
Right?
Go ahead, Todd.
Hello, Todd Geiger at 4318 Speaker Road in Kansas City. Thank you for the consideration, and Brad, wonderful job, thank you. To answer all this is a very hard challenge. Just like the farmers, when they go, when it's time to cut hay, you gotta go. And in the construction business, as Brad laid out, in the wintertime, we're not gonna be as busy. Summertime, we would. I've been thinking about this the last couple of days, trying to give you the right answer, and I don't have one. Year to year, it changes differently, month to month. A settlement or agreement, hearing you say the ready mix permit down the street that Ham tried to put in 2 a.m., we would be happy with the 2 a.m. If the end of the day, it's hard to cut off at 5 o'clock. If we could extend it to 7, and if we have a 2 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday, 2 a.m. to noon on Saturday. We want to keep a half a day so our teammates can have a life, can go home, and we try to stay away from Sundays at all possible cost. So Brad's recommendation of 48 hours, I would love that. And we, again, our normal business is 5 to 6. Majority 70-80% of the day, of the time, but we do have some crazy, we're in the service business and sometimes we get some crazy requests.
Thanks, Todd. What if we did seasonal variation in hours and Sunday operations are subject to approval by the city administrator, and your standard hours between 5 to 6 stay? Does that work? So you're talking about seasonal needs, and if you've got something coming up, you just have to get it approved by the city administrator. I'm assuming it's like the month of June. We have this huge project. We know we got to start at 2 a.m. to get it. You just give the city notice.
That's fair, but knowing that the snow's gonna start flying, sometimes October is our busiest month.
Okay, well.
And you don't.
I guess my point is it gives you the seasonal, rather than us coming up with the calendar for you. And this is the part that I have a real hard time with on this, is that we're here trying to make something up for you. You need to tell us what you want.
Well, I would love no restriction. And,
That is gonna happen.
besides Sunday, and
I
then.
don't think we'd ever approve that.
And then I would go second, I would go from 2 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then we have a lot of, again, it's hard for us to find people to go early. So we do have a lot of 4 a.m. on the job site starts. So that's 3 a.m. start for us at the plant. Takes 30 minutes to get going, 30 minutes to drive is typical. And that extra hour would give us a buffer in case we go earlier.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Are we talking just about traffic operations, hours of operations, nothing regarding the batch plant itself, or are we talking about both?
I would throw in people coming in to work.
I think this is batch plant hours of operation. To me, that would include people that are showing up in the batch plant.
Okay.
doing the work.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that's probably what.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because,
We may never know about it, but
yeah.
if you're not rolling trucks, we're probably never gonna know.
We're in a crazy business with the times,
To
but
clarify, as the applicant, you have requested 2 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 2 a.m. to noon on Saturday.
correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, can I
Sure.
just address Patrick Reeby, city attorney? And I just wanted to comment briefly on the term of the permit. you guys already know this, but the very nature of a special use permit is the use is not allowed in that district, but it can be permitted under special circumstances, special conditions, and that's what you're debating here. My memory might not be, but it seems like we've been trying to stick with 10-year permits. I would at least suggest, if it's gonna be 20 years, that there be a check-in at the 10-year mark, because, you know, whatever you approve tonight or whatever the council puts in an ordinance, that's set in stone for 20 years unless you have some type of check-in mechanism or you limit it to 10 years like the other permit. So I just wanted to comment. I wasn't aware that request was for 20 years until the presentation. Thank you.
So Patrick, to be clear, you're suggesting a 10 years subject to a renewal after 10 years upon submission of an application?
I mean, that's what we did for the other one, and I think generally, unless Mike, you have different I think we've generally been trying to do that with special use permits, just knowing that.
The only one I think I have any recollection of being that long was Zimmerman's Barn. I think
Yeah.
we did that one for 20 years just because we had to do it, could make that
Yeah.
work. But other than that, I don't think we have a 20-year.
Yeah, it comes up on the mines and quarries, so the sand dredging pit operation, but we only had the one, and it started in the 90s, so
That's
there's
right.
all a whole ball of weird stuff associated with that one. The other ones I remember were cell towers. We have 2 or 3 cell towers, and
Yeah.
we did that, but cell towers are an investment of $1 million, a couple $1 million. This is a bit larger investment, but
That's true.
yeah, I think that's what I'm recalling are the cell towers. We're at 10-year.
Applicant would like to respond.
I guess we would just note that 15 million is a sizable investment, and if there was a way to do, maybe we started in our conversations on this at 25, but if there was a way to do 20 with some sort of 10-year check-in or whatever, I don't know what that looks like, but that would be preferable.
Matter is a public hearing, so at this point, if the commission's comfortable with that, I'd like to open the matter before the public. Anyone who'd like to address the planning commission on this matter, please approach the podium, give us your name and address.
My name is Craig Connell. I live at 39905 West 103rd Street. The back fence line to this project abuts my farm where I live. I'm the guy that came and visited Brad in his office a few weeks ago with some questions, many of which have been answered now, which is good. A little background, when this was all being transacted last year with G.W. Weld and his partners, I guess, I met with him personally. He told me this was going to be low-level, 1-2-story buildings, you know, industrial for like plumbers and electricians. You have their shops and, you know, that kind of a thing. So when I saw this batch plant, it's going to be 9 stories tall next door, it really surprised me. So I'm disappointed in what the transaction here happened from. It's kind of like a bait and switch is what I feel from what GW told me to what's happening right now. I have concerns about everything I have concerns is this pollution, dust, lighting, noise, and visual pollution. So I think most of the dust things have been addressed from what I've read or seen online. Paving the road is going to be good for controlling the road dust. Lighting is a concern, right? You know, it's pretty dark out where we live right now, which is great because we can see the stars and everything at night. But I can already see the Panasonic glow at night from where I live, and that's only going to get worse as more stuff gets built. I understand that. I can't stop that. But to be this close to where I live, a little concerning. So I want some assurance that the lighting at night is only security lighting, and it's just a few lights just to maintain security, and they're all pointed downward, and no lighting at the top of the building, that kind of stuff. Is that okay? Noise. I understand what Brad said about visiting these plants, and we get road noise off of K10, so I'm aware of that too. But I'm worried about the constant beep, beep, beep of payloaders backing up and the trucks coming in to dump aggregate if we're gonna get, 50 of those a day, that's a lot of beeping going on when people are backing up and stuff. So, I'm a little worried about that, as some of my other neighbors are too. And then the last thing, and I think you've addressed this already, is, so there's, that fence road's already got a lot of trees on it. Some of them are pretty big. And I just want some assurance that those none of those are gonna get cut down that are on your side of the fence. Because some are on my side, some on your side.
We want that protection.
Okay, good. And there's a few thin spots. I hope you plant some trees to fill in, because I'll be doing that on my side too. But, so I know I can't stop this, but I'm a little frustrated about the bait and switch that I had from last year, talking to GW, but thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Emily at 40253 West 111th Street,
I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Madden.
Thank you.
Just had a couple concerns in regards to the special use permit. First one is the notice of communication. I saw in the documentation that neighbors of 1,000 feet were notified. I'm not sure if the neighbor that just spoke actually received a written notification or not, but he is probably the closest one besides the two properties that are on, or two buildings that are on the property that are part of the purchase of this property. Everything else is beyond the 1,000 feet. The only communication we saw were signs on the property, and most of those have blown down because of the weather and the wind that have happened. So last 2 weeks, I haven't seen a sign up. There was even people out there doing testing or grading. I'm sure a representative of the company may have been out there and didn't write that sign. I live in that area, and there's other places that have asked for conditional use permits, special use permits that I've received in the last year. And I'm within a half mile from these locations, and that's 2,640 feet. So I know I can't do anything about it with this. We're already, knee deep into this, but take into consideration, maybe extending that for communication. It just kind of felt like, looking at it, there wasn't really anything around 1,000 feet. So who were they really expecting to communicate to? It just kind of felt uncomfortable,
I think that's a
sneaky.
standard. It's not something that they do case by case. Am I correct in that?
It's statutory.
Right, so it's not something.
But you're right, I don't disagree with you that it does seem a little bit short.
Yeah.
For a lot of these projects, but
I
that's
mean,
the statute.
looking around, it's all agriculture till you get
Yeah.
to our street, pretty much. Unless we're aware of things that are going on, and it's a tiny little sign, it's probably this big that's up. So just consider that for the next project would be great. My other concern is the activity. They currently are proposing, 200 trip activity, 25 employee trips, 10 vendor trips, that's 235. I know we've said something like 8 to 10 an hour. That's really like one every 3 minutes. I know we seem like we're kind of far off, but there is activity. There's several residents that live at south of there, and a lot of us that are residents there work from home, have buildings out of the home, stay home with families. Some of the biggest concern with that is the noise, the lights at 2 a.m. If we're now extending that time period, I'm even more concerned that we're still trying to evaluate what that time looks like. Dusk till dawn, is that where we're going to get to? There's seems to be some loose terminology here where we can have an exception for kind of anything. And we're going to be looking at 20-hour days or longer because it's hot, which I totally understand. I understand the heat. I understand the overnight crews. I understand, urgent type things. We all work in an industry where there's urgent, last minute approvals. But, just consider some of those things for some of the current residents out there. I know we live in the country. Many of us lived out there to be in the country, to be woken up by chickens, not by an 80,000-pound concrete truck, or the flashing light, when you get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So just something to consider there. I also was here for the last planning committee meeting, and the owner was asked to him at the end what their intent for this property was overall. And he did say it was to be one of the main locations. And a follow-up question was, what did that look like? And they said doubling it. Doubling, that's 470 total truck trips a day. Now we're looking at one truck every minute and a half. Another thing, the 20 years, big concern to have that going on. And we all know with those things, over 20 years, who's going to do the maintenance of the roads, the water wash offs? Everything is neat and shiny when it's brand new. But in 20 years from now, you saw in some of the pictures that were proposed from them visiting the Kansas City, Kansas location recently. I also visited that location. I've also visited the one in Olathe. I'm not sure about the production or the activity that are done out of either one of those, but I can tell a complete difference in the way that they look and are maintained. The one in Olathe has a lot of piles of things, a lot of different piles everywhere, a lot of water runoff there. Just concerning what that's going to look like. If we're not checking in 10 years, who is in charge of maintaining that they're meeting their codes and staying within what they said today? Just kind of the final thing that I just want to say is I'm not naive in knowing that change is inevitable. I know something's probably going to go in here. If it's not them, it's going to be someone else. I just, wanted you to consider some of the things today to see if this is the right move for this spot right now. I think many of us could say we're open to a gas station. We're open to some other businesses. We know growth is happening and businesses are going to come into our environment. Another thing that just popped in my head, sorry, one final thing is, this started out at the batch plant, Panasonic. They got a limited, contract, 3 years. Why? I'm guessing they don't want them in their neighborhood either long term. So just, and that actually seems more of the appropriate neighborhood to be in. There's industrial already, commercial over there already. It's going to continue to grow. They're going to add things in that area already. So I guess with that, I'll just end with that.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the planning commission?
Gents, lady, how's it going? I'm Jackson Brungart. I live at 40025 West 111th Street, Eudora, Kansas. I get it. It still affects me, so I'm here. Sir, thank you for coming today. For owners of big corporations, it's not easy to get around to these kind of things, so I get it. 90-foot high building, I feel like is very tall, obviously. I was in the GC world for like a year, 2 years. So stories add up. The Panasonic plant you can see from K10, this you'll be able to see from K10. We can't stop it, but what can we do? They say that they're going to put 1.5 towards the road and increasing that and making that better for us, but really it's only to benefit themselves, right? They're maintaining that road so they can use it and all of that. There's homeowners that live behind that. People have built homes in the last year. A home's not even built yet. So our property values, what's going to happen with that, right? Johnson County already, everybody knows that that's pretty high. So our mortgages are going to tank, So I'd just like to know from you guys, right? You guys say you're going to put 1.5 towards it, and I believe he mentioned that they might not be getting the property tax to the city of DeSoto, right? And all of that. So I'd like that to be clarified, because if the city of DeSoto is going to be the one passing everything, then why is there a possibility that money might not be given to people who are making the
If I can
shots?
address that, just
Yes, sir.
address us.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
It's okay.
Never been here.
Brad's comments had to do with sales tax, not
Oh,
property
okay,
tax.
great.
Sales tax when they
Great.
go and make deliveries outside of DeSoto property. We
Right,
won't be able to
right.
collect sales tax
Okay.
on that.
Thank you for the clarification on that, sir. But yeah, that is all I have. Please take us into consideration. I know you can't see it on the blow up, but there are homes that are literally right on that road, So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else like to address the planning commission? No one online?
No one online, Chairman.
With that, I'll close the public hearing. The matters before the planning commission.
Are there different versions of a check-in that could be proposed? I'm not aware of any. I just don't know what is sort of available to
Well,
use.
I just typed something up, I don't know.
A monitoring, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have done it before, but you got something?
Yeah, I was just tinkering with it, but so the term in the ultimate ordinance, this is one way to handle it, I think. It would indicate the term of the permit. This special use permit is granted for a period of 10 years from the effective date of this ordinance. An additional 10-year renewal of the special use permit may be administratively approved by the planning commission upon satisfaction that any non-compliance of the permit and or other concerns raised by the city have been adequately addressed by permittee. And any renewal of this permit beyond the original 10-year term and another 10-year renewal term, permittee shall be obligated to pursue said renewal pursuant to application and submittal requirements in effect at the time of renewal.
It's a lot of words, but I think they did a good job.
Yeah. That was quick.
I mean, I think we have done that before.
Okay, yeah.
It's basically a 10-year check-in.
Yeah, yeah.
You got it.
If you're out of compliance,
Yeah,
correct
if we
it.
have an issue, we can raise it at the 10-year mark. They don't have to reapply, but it gives us at least an opportunity to come back to the planning commission.
Which is great.
So it's a public hearing again in 10 years, or it's a?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. So if these neighbors have questions, they just call the city?
You know, I'm assuming that the reason you want it is because if neighbors are complaining about the photometrics in their backyard and all the beeping of the trucks, they'll be hearing about it.
Okay, so then they'll notify the city, and then the city will notify us in 10 years, and we'll discuss it at the planning
At least that's
commission.
an opportunity to do something.
Okay.
Brad, I didn't see a photometric or a lighting plan on this. Do we need that for the special use permit?
It's in there.
There is.
Yeah. I missed it. Where is it?
About halfway through.
Yeah, you can't read the numbers.
And let's see.
It's sheet EP 1.00.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Say that again.
EP 1.00. A couple more, Mike.
Yeah, this thing takes a little bit to load.
Oh. Yeah, I have no idea what this is.
So, yeah, these are the numbers. Can zoom in.
It's supposed to say 0 at the property lines.
Lots of zeros. But yeah, on your printed version, there's no hope of reading those. But you can if you zoom into the PDF.
So the idea is, unlike the construction we have right now at Astra that creates a lovely glow, this should basically be designed to keep the light within the property line.
Correct. Now, there will be sky, there's no avoiding some sky
some.
glow, yeah, but.
But you do have, are these lights
As
that are
far as
on the?
this level, photometric plans generally, test the ground, at the ground level. The
Okay.
lighting conditions at the ground level, not in the air, so.
Okay.
These zeros don't represent the sky glow, but, that's what our regs, regulate to.
Those lights that ring the batch plant 90 feet high? Is that where those lights are?
I believe there's, I don't,
No.
Brad,
Where are the lights?
there's nothing on poles, there's some pole lights, correct?
Correct.
They'd be no more than 30 feet high. No different than a traffic, light pole.
For a building this tall, do you have to have one of those flashy red lights on the roof? No?
Good question.
Airplanes were.
I hope not. But that's generally what they're used to avoid.
Well, I suppose my only question is, does this comport with what we require?
Yes.
Thank I do appreciate the addition of the vegetation on the north edge of the property, because driving down Evening Star, it'll be very visible, and having something that will help shelter that's helpful. So I appreciate you doing that. Other comments?
Yeah, so, I mean, first off, I want to thank staff for doing their hard work, going around looking at all the other batch plants and working with the applicant on, add the updates to the elevations and, ultimately the maintenance building, I think it looks great. The batch plant building, I mean, it's 90 foot tall. I mean, what it is.
But it's quieter being 90 foot tall because everything's inside.
Yeah, everything's inside. So, I mean, they're doing their best, I think, to mitigate, the noise and, with the lighting plan, it shows, doing their best to try and mitigate the light disturbance. But I do think there needs to be a check-in period at 10 years. I'm still in support of the 20-year term. The time, I'm kind of torn on that. 2 o'clock in the morning is pretty early. But it'll just be employees coming in, I understand that. I don't think trucks would need to be leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning. That seems fairly early in my opinion. I would like to hear what everybody else has to say about the timing, but generally I'd be in support. I'd like to hear what everybody has to say on the timing would be my big concern.
I agree with the 10-year term with a look back or a check at that 10-year period, and administrative approval being possible to go to 20. And I think the hours outlined by staff are reasonable, and I know that they're not always going to cover the needs. I guess I would like to see us use the hours outlined by staff with staff's ability to extend that period when requests are made. And if staff feels like they need 48 hours to respond to a request, go with it.
I'm not a big fan of making a bureaucratic headache for anybody, but by that same token, if we approve this from 2 to 7, and you guys decide to start taking deliveries at 3 o'clock in the morning, just for whatever reason, then there's nothing we can do about it. And I don't know that we really want to go there. I do understand seasonal nature of the work, and I do understand you need to have some flexibility, but I think this gives you at least the opportunity to, if you have those seasonal needs, work it out with the city administrator for a variance on that. And we'll give the authority of the city administrator to do that, but theoretically be temporary in nature as opposed to just whenever you want to at 2 a.m. That causes a problem for us. And, I totally understand that you're 300 feet back from the road. You're away from a lot of the other development. The noise here theoretically shouldn't be a problem, but I would feel a whole lot better about this having some sort of standard hours with subject to variation, but that's my.
I would agree.
I wholeheartedly agree, because sound travels a whole lot different at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning than it does at noon.
Yeah,
The railroad tracks across the river are a perfect example of that.
I'd be in support of a 10-year check-in and a staff's recommendation on hours with the option to vary from it. So I think that'd be fine.
Any other comments or concerns with regard to the elevations? I do appreciate you updating those and trying to get a little bit more closer with what we'd hope these buildings would look like. So I do appreciate that. Anybody else have comments on that? I'm assuming the applicant would like to say something?
If I could.
Please.
we don't want early morning pours either. I mean, midnight was pretty typical, common before COVID, and work-life balance with individuals changed that, and it's, 4 a.m. is really our start. With your comment of consistency and then your comment of what staff recommend, I would ask, can staff recommend the different time, or how would we address that? And then to the consistency, the city of DeSoto already granted the property on 83rd Street 2 a.m. So I know it's going to be an issue or a challenge at times. I just don't have a consistency. And if it's an extra step for us to call in, we can do that. I'm just trying to avoid it on the time frame.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, to address the question of the consistency, the other plant had a variety of other issues, in particular on the traffic on 83rd Street. And one of the things that was there was a very, very different situation than what you're dealing with, being good highway access from where you are and being able to get out. I appreciate that you'd like to be able to do it without having to ask for it, and I totally understand you, and I don't want to make this a hassle, but by that same token, if the only time we're going to be able to deal with it is when we do a 10-year check-in, you're kind of making it so that we got to make sure that you're going to be a good neighbor. And part of that's going to be your use of the property, and if it's disruptive to your neighbors to have whatever you decide to do at 2 a.m., the city's going to get complaints about it. And if we're going to tie their hands with that, I think that's a problem. So, I don't know if there's anything magical about 5 to 6, and as far as I'm concerned, whatever comes out of here is going to go back to city council for approval. So you can always raise it with them. But, for what we're doing, I think we're trying to find a way to accommodate this without giving you just a blank check. So that would be a wonderful thing for you to talk with Brad about and talk with Mike about, and before you go to city council, maybe there's something you can work out that you can convince them the right thing to do. This shouldn't have been something that was a surprise to you, so I'm sorry that we're trying to make sausage for you because we're not very good at this. You really need to talk to them about it to make something work, but I think the issue is as we described.
Thank you for laying that out. I did miss that, my fault, on when we did talk to them to kind of.
There's a lot to do.
Yeah, but thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you.
I just might add that we're trying to take care of our residents that we already have the best we can as well, because this is a big change for them. So we want to try to make everybody happy, which is not always easy.
Other comments, discussion? Chad, you've been very quiet.
I have taken it all.
Anyone like to make a recommendation?
Oh, it's gonna be a mouthful, but I'll give it a shot.
Good, go for it.
I'd make a recommendation that we approve item agenda 5A with the following conditions. First, the 10-year check-in that Patrick laid out so eloquently that I won't even try to say again, along with to be determined hours of operation based on staff's recommendation. Is that acceptable, or do we need to have hours in there?
Well, the recommendation is 5 a.m. to 6 p.m.
So do we just leave that as is?
And I think my recommendation to the planning commission would be to do it with the staff recommendation and add the qualification to the 10, where the 10 years subject to check-in, 20 years subject to check-in at 10.
Okay, so make a recommendation that we approve item 5A with Patrick's 10-year check-in verbiage, along with
staff's
recommendations.
I'll second it.
Wait, were we not gonna have something about they were gonna check in on special hours if they needed it?
Well, I think for what we're doing, putting this in the hands of city council with, hopefully you'll have a chance to talk with staff about it, maybe you come up with something. I really don't like it when we're trying to fix that, because it's just like, no matter what we do, it's gonna be not right. We should leave that to staff to work out with them, and, I mean, I think that's the best we can do with this.
I agree.
I second his recommendation.
Okay, motion and second. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Schultz,
Yes.
Maddock,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, thank you. Brings us to new item 7B. And I guess, Brad, can you tell us a little about this? Or
Well,
Patrick, or
you
whoever
wanna
wants
do,
to?
just take care of 7B and then we can talk about the preliminary. Preliminary plat is 7A.
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped over 7A, my bad. Next item is 7A. Consider preliminary plat for Flint Meadows East. This is not a public hearing item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you have before you is the preliminary plat for Flint Meadows East. It is a mix of single-family residences and townhomes primarily. As you can see from the layout of the properties, there will be approximately 334 total units. Most of the site will be single-family units, and we did talk about the lot widths. They will be 52 feet wide, so there's going to be no issues with the separation for the soffits to be fireproofed. So there'll be additional 2 units and 3 and 4 unit townhomes on this site, so ultimately 334 units on this location. Fairly significant subdivision requirement. It is a very mixed-use type development. That's something that's very standard these days. And we've worked with the applicant on quite a while about the road alignment and how to tie into the traffic circle on Astor
On
Parkway.
that point, Brad,
Yeah.
so if I can just flip to your recommendation, you're recommending we table this item until the roadwork network issues can be resolved. I'm assuming they aren't resolved as of.
That is correct, and I guess we just jump right to that. I think all the standard criteria that we go through in the preliminary plat meets the things that we're looking for. It's got curvilinear streets, landscaping, all the detention.
I guess my point is, I'd love to go through all of that on this, but if those things are gonna change,
Well, I guess
we don't necessarily need to plow the ground twice.
All right, exactly. Good point, Mr. Chairman. The real concern the staff has is the connection on Astor Parkway northbound, should it connect to 99th Street. As I said in the staff report, there's some merits doing it either way. The applicant has indicated a preference for the layout that's before you tonight. Staff would like to see a different route with that. The other part of it is the collector status of Astor Parkway north of the traffic circle. At the very least, staff believes that it should be wider towards the roundabout, very similar to what has happened out at Arbor Ridge, where it's wider, and then as it tapers off as it goes farther back into the subdivision. The other issue is Rowan Road. Typically, we have the property owners will dedicate the right-of-way. Those issues have not been resolved, so wanted to bring that up, but we do feel like it still would have been appropriate to bring this before you, just showing you that those are the two things that we're still trying to work out. I think they can be worked out, but it's just a matter of getting these things before the planning commission, so at least we could get some sort of direction and recommendation, but we are asking you to table this and bring it back. This is a very significant development for the city of DeSoto. So really, those are the two things, is Rowan Road, how to handle the additional right-of-way, and then also the status of Astor Parkway, primarily north of the roundabout for the first at least few hundred feet, and then potentially connecting into 99th Street. I do know the applicant, Flint Development, would also like to address the planning commission on why they chose this route and not connected to 99th Street. So I think it'd be beneficial for you all to hear that as well.
If the applicant would like to move forward on this, based on that recommendation, I'm happy to do that. If you're talking with them, though, we can table it and let you talk. I guess that's the question.
But if I could, Chairman, I think it would be helpful for staff and the applicant to hear some discussion with the planning commission.
Okay.
Get your feelings on it, get your thoughts, get your input.
Okay.
Was kind of the intent of that for this evening.
Very well.
That'd be helpful for us.
So didn't mean to short circuit it.
No, that's quite right. I appreciate that. I guess the thing is when you sort of at a common sense way, you look at this and go, why isn't Astor just connect to 99th Street? We've gone through the Southwest Growth Area Plan. 99th Street was a pretty key component to that as far as that mid, potentially 3-lane road coming through that area. So there is some discussion on why you would or wouldn't connect through.
I'm not as familiar as maybe some of the other commissioners are on where 99th would actually be located. I'm
Yeah.
guessing it.
It would be, it'd be on the north line, so on the
Okay.
north is to the right on this map here. So 99th, the 99th alignment would be along the north line of the property.
Okay, and what we're discussing is
So,
tying it
here's
in?
the roundabout for 103rd and Astor Park. So this, on this, it's called Street A, but it will be Astor Parkway.
Okay.
So this is the one, and we're talking about potentially connecting this street up to 99, rather than having it turn west.
Is the detention area problematic? Is that why? I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but I'm just wondering.
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, the applicant, I'm sure, can address it better, but it would require reconfiguration of the lots, reconfiguration of that detention area. Yeah, a new layout there in phase 6 or whichever phase that would be.
Yeah, it's 6.
Which is what prompted my questions, because if that's where it goes, this is gonna look very different.
Yep. Okay, now I'm caught up. Thank you.
But I think there's valid arguments on both sides.
Well, and that's what
The first one
if we're having an argument, that's great, but
Yeah.
if you're working with them, then I just didn't wanna have to
Yeah.
do this twice.
And trying to fully understand, I guess, we're talking about straight A being a collector style roadway.
Yeah, so part of staff's concern is, we see the full, the traffic counts from the entire subdivision, and the traffic study defines kind of the division of where that traffic's going to be entering the subdivision and exiting. Most of it logically would be through Astor Parkway, and if you look at that, it would seem like Street A would kind of exceed the general thresholds for a local standard road. And again, I wanted the applicant to have a opportunity to speak to this, but just from a layperson's perspective, it looks like the southern couple blocks at least of Astor Parkway might need to be a wider street section and as it's shown here, it's just I think it's a 50-foot right of way or just a typical 28-foot street. Might need to be wider, at least for those first couple blocks where the traffic volume will be higher.
The first couple blocks north of 103rd.
Yeah.
And if it was a collector style roadway, I assume it'd be 60 foot right away.
Yeah, that's a minimum on a collector, yeah.
And would the houses be able to front that?
We don't have a prohibition against fronting houses on collector, and I think that maybe the developer would prefer that not occur, which is, I think, part of their argument for not.
So, what do you guys want to do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can sit here and discuss the merits of putting the road through and all that stuff, but I mean, are we at that point?
I'll just give you my view. Staff is empowered on behalf of the city to work out these issues with these folks. If you're at an impasse and you need to bring it to us because you have something you want to get our input on, great. Otherwise, I don't want us to do anything to undermine the authority of staff to work out these issues. And, we did the Southwest Development Plan. We've got 99th Street, which I think cuts all the way through there in accordance with our plan. So this is a big issue, and one that staff is saying, hey, we need to look at that. To my mind, I don't want to do anything here to undermine that. So that's my view, but I'm happy to sit here and banter about it, and we can do whatever we want to say, but it's up to you guys to figure that out.
Very much appreciate the sentiment And I think what we are saying is there is a little bit of an impact. Just reasonably, I think that the applicant has legitimate reasons for not wanting to connect that road. I think there are legitimate reasons for wanting it connected. So I think we are kind of, we do want the feedback.
Okay.
Without belaboring the landscaping plan and a lot of everything else, because we understand could change.
So focusing on the road issue then, I guess, maybe you can give us your side of it, and maybe we can hear from the applicant, and you can get whatever feedback you guys wanna give.
I think, yeah, that's
Does that sound
exactly
okay?
what, yeah, we'd like. if
Yeah,
we-
I don't think we need to dive into lot widths and all that stuff at this time at all. Sorry, Roger.
You get what you prove.
You got a thank you on this side and a thank you on this side.
So, tell us about the issue.
Yeah, well, I kind of already articulated, Brad, you can stop me,
No, go
when I
right
need
ahead,
to
Mike.
stop. But, at least my feeling is that Astor Parkway, moving south of 103rd Street, definitely will be that arterial connection, sort of connection to that industrial park. The traffic circle there at Astor Parkway 103rd is very robust, very logical connection. And as we know, 99th Street will be that major, kind of a collector east-west. Seems like it does make sense to provide that ultimate connection to 99th Street there. And I understand it would impact some layout, some lots there, and possibly the detention there in the northeast corner of the site. I think the counter argument to that is the applicant would prefer not to have ability for cut-through traffic for areas not north of 99th that might develop and cut through the subdivision. Kind of creates more traffic on this road that they would prefer to have more of a residential sort of feel. Certainly see the concerns there with driveway access onto that. But independent of that, let's assuming the road doesn't connect, I still wonder if the thresholds on those last couple blocks have been met to warrant a more robust section there. So I think, yeah, I've already articulated it. That's essentially the conversation there. The other thing is that Rowan Road, as it connects to 103rd Street, will be a right-in, right-out only. You're not going to be able to turn left and go east on 103rd Street there. You're only going to be able to go east by taking a right, going down to Edgerton, that roundabout, and heading back east if you connect at Rowan. So, I just think that the roundabout
Because
there
it's
kinda-
divided, I assume?
Yeah, there's a median there.
You just answered one of my questions, is whether they were gonna do a cut.
And we, in the Southwest Growth Area Plan, when we designated Rowan as the definitive collector in that area, it's a half-section line, makes all kinds of sense, going north of here, north of 99th, Rowan extends on up to 95th, and it makes sense for a lot of those reasons. Astor Parkway is really the oddball here, because it was, it's just where the entrance to the Army ammunition plant was, and they didn't put it on a section line or a half-section line. So it's really the oddball here. So that's when Brad said we've been with the applicant, we've brewed with this decision for months and months trying to figure out. And so when we ultimately made the decision on the Southwest Growth Area Plan that Rowan, the connection to 103rd Street isn't the best, but that's the most logical for the property next door and the properties to the north. It's kind of a function of that decision that we made. So I don't know that there's any tremendous wrong answer here, but it is an important one to think through it.
Is Rowan Road, is that a residential road?
No, it'll be a collector
Oh.
standard, as it's shown here, and I think appropriately so, it would be a collector road.
I mean, I would assume it's just dollars and cents. It costs more money to build the road further, and they lose lots. Is it really just an economics thing, or is there more to it than
I
that?
think there's more to it. The applicant could probably articulate it better than I could.
Well, I certainly have no opposition if the applicant would like to speak on their side, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Stephen Harder.
Live at 4101 West 62nd Street, Fairway, Kansas. Director of Development for Flint Development, focused on this residential project. With me, I've got Kristen Skinner, our traffic engineer, and Patrick Joyce, our civil engineer, with Kimley Horn and Priority Engineers. So I think what would help is to provide a bit of context of how we kind of got to this in the initial planning phase. So I think it was back probably December-ish when we kind of presented some of the initial site plans of, hey, this is how we want to connect it. Here's our two options of, we can make a connection to the 103rd roundabout. We can make that a collector and we kind of hug the eastern property line, which is on the bottom of the page. Or we could do this Rowan Road. You know, we went back and forth with staff on what's best, and we kind of arose to where we're at today, which is there's pros and cons to both. And then ultimately, after the growth plan or growth study was kind of engaged with HDR and Confluence, we had asked to be looped in with them to kind of get their input, because they do this for cities all around the country. So they helped kind of guide that growth plan. And I don't know, Mike, can we pull that up? It's just some of those maps to show.
Yeah, the maps are on the engineering drive.
Oh.
Planning commission packets are.
Yeah, so while he's pulling that up, basically we met with Confluence and HDR, and their recommendation was that Rowan Road is the better street to have as a collector, just because it divides that quadrant. It's evenly placed east and west between Sunflower and Edgerton, and then 99th would be evenly placed between 103rd and 95th. So that divides that quadrant up, and you know, if there's further development in this area, I know there's, you know, some rural residential homes that are to the north of us that you know, that could be 20 years before they decide to change and develop that. So that could be a very long time. Our neighbor to the west, same thing, you know, they're currently farming, and, you know, we're not sure when they plan to develop. So as far as looking forward to the future, that road would serve this development, and, you know, any of these others that choose to develop, especially because Rowan Road currently does cut about halfway through those northern parcels. So with this road connecting to the northern boundary, I don't know if I have a pointer I can kind of help. Do we have a laser pointer?
Doesn't work. You have one?
There we go. So here's a, let's see here. There's our site, yeah. So Rowan Road currently extends to right here. If we extend Rowan Road right there, you're 1,000 feet left from creating this connection. So rather than taking this as the collector street down our eastern boundary to a 99th Street that may or may not get developed for, you know, many years, that kind of serves as a dead-end route. So to us, that us and Confluence and HDR, that seemed less likely as far as, you know, being a public improvement that will benefit this area long term. So those are a couple items. As far as the connection through our development, you know, Panasonic's significant development, lots of truck traffic, lots of vehicle traffic. That is going to be the main entrance to this intersection. And if any of us were to live in that neighborhood, having your kids playing basketball in that street and having cars accidentally taking that roundabout north with truck traffic going through that would be a real concern. So that's kind of, you know, just from the aspect of creating a safe space in that neighborhood, Rowan Road provides that, to where it provides access to the neighborhood. Another thing I should add is with the development is, until we're phasing this development, so it'll be 6 phases. So this will take likely 2 to 3 years to build out to the back. We only need one access point until we get back to like phase 3 or 4 before it's really required for emergency access. So this road, there's, you know, a little bit of time that we can build this out. Another added benefit is this is, you know, all the roads will be dedicated as public, and so this is infrastructure that we're taking upon this project to develop and build and dedicate over to the city. So it's improving a water line, likely a 12-inch water line down Rowan Road that'll be accessible to future development in this area. along with, a quality street and development. So I think there's a lot of positives to that. But anyway, I'll stop and answer any questions.
So I'm just throw this out there. I'm really confused now. I guess why is the main collector road on the east side of it shown on the future traffic plan on the west side?
I don't know what you're asking.
Well, I'm asking, pull up the traffic plan. It shows the major road is Rowan Road connecting the 99th. So why is the city wanting to go connect to 99th on the east side of their development?
Well, I think the desire is to have it connected, not necessarily that it's the collector street, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
It's the main connection point, but just a connection point.
Yeah, and I guess, that's a good clarifying point. I think if it is to be connected, so right here, if it were to connect through this detention basin, you're going to create long-term an issue where traffic is going to use that as a cut-through to get to 99th, or just the confused traffic coming from the Panasonic area or further south of 103rd. So it just creates an unnecessary cut-through, whereas this allows traffic to still get through and serve this quadrant, whereas any of the major traffic from other areas can take 103rd to get to K10 via other routes.
Okay. So the major road is Rowan Road.
Yeah. It'll remain that way.
Yeah.
And all the connections to Rowan are gonna be left outs?
I'm sorry?
Connections to Rowan Road will all be left outs? They're gonna have to be right outs there, do you know?
No, these connections to Rowan will be, you can turn right or left.
Mhm.
Yep. Regular.
Except Rowan Road will dead end basically right there at 99th, won't it?
No. On the future land use map, the road goes all the way up.
Yeah, for now.
The portion we're building out, yes, will dead end,
That's what I meant.
but then you're only 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet to connect to the other
north side of
portion.
that basically goes up to private drive for two houses.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
From 95th Street.
Yep.
Yeah. So here.
Yeah, it's to serve those lots that are, right there.
There's a house to the right and left.
Correct.
And then Rowan Road will be a right in, right out on 103rd?
Yeah. There's a median there on 103rd, so it won't be able.
And I can let Kristen speak to some of that as far as traffic concerns with that right in, right out. I don't see it.
Why you're worried about them cutting through.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable concern about why people would cut through.
Yeah.
I get that.
I guess my concern would be that's gonna be the case no matter what. I mean, Rowan's not gonna be the desirable route, or it wouldn't for me, without the full intersection there.
Right.
So you may have people cutting through.
Yeah, I think, I assume that's what staff's concerned with, is that people are gonna try and cut over to Street A anyway, even if Rowan goes to 103rd. But they're going to have to go through the subdivision in that case. I mean, all the east-west streets, instead of having the option of going down to 99th Street and following a primarily collector route.
I know you were introduced, but go ahead and give us your name and address for the record.
Kristen Skinner with Priority Engineers, 31720 South McLean Road, Harrisonville, Missouri.
Thank you.
I just want to point out, traffic tends to stay on the larger road, so you do have the concern with Rowan not being a full access. That's one of the, arguments against using Rowan instead of Astra Parkway going to the north. But traffic typically, if we keep those roads narrow, is going to want to stay on the more major route. So it's also an argument against widening out Astra and kind of encouraging cut-through traffic. Another concern with widening that out is wider roads mean faster traffic. There's kind of an industry trend against making the roads as wide and as flat as possible. We're actually starting to make them smaller, lower speeds, traffic calming. Looking at this road, I'll go ahead and just jump in on if it were to cut through. I can see this road being one that you would get concerns about and have residents requesting speed humps. Because you're going to have driveways directly onto it. You're going to have people driving through there and like you said, people concerned about their kids and just backing directly onto a collector road, especially if it's wider. So
Plus, those are all your townhomes, basically, right? So you may have parking issues.
The
Those are single
townhomes
family.
are back up to Rowan.
What are the ones that are fronting Street A?
Fronting Street A, those are single-family homes.
Those are single family?
Correct.
Yeah. I thought those were octagons, or townhomes.
It's interesting. You must have an interesting job influencing behavior by the width of a road and how flat it is.
Right, well, I mean, it's kind of been a shift because if you think about it, the flatter, the wider, you feel like you can drive fast. And on the interstate, that's a good thing. In a residential street, it's not, when there's pedestrians, so.
The development along Road A, those aren't duplexes?
Those are not.
Because it says duplex.
Oh, does it?
Duplex townhome lots. Maybe this is an old picture, but the color site plan that I'm looking at.
Okay, which one are you looking at?
Oh, that one may be older.
old?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, after staff's recommendation, it made more sense to
Okay.
group the townhomes along that collector street there, as well as that side of our development, just for consistency of the community.
Okay, I'm looking at the wrong one. Not the first time.
Scratch that.
Well, Mark makes a good point, that, I mean, there's going to be traffic that's gonna go through there for somebody who's trying to cut through it some way or another, and it's gonna happen. The question is how much. And, you know, I think the idea behind what you're proposing is that you would discourage that by not improving it to the point that it looks like it's a cut through.
Yep.
I get it. My take on it is I wish you well with city staff, and I hope you guys come up with a way to work it out. Seriously.
Yep. Well, I think I will, just another point to add for what it's worth. Originally, we had very straight roads, kind of like you see more in the area of town where I live. Staff did recommend to curve all of these roads, so you see kind of the nice curves that you get there. For what it's worth, that does kind of deter it, especially the circuitous nature of Street A there as well. So we think we've covered that pretty well, at least for the benefit of our community.
Sounds like you guys both have good arguments.
Agreed.
So what I'm hearing is a planning commission's heart won't be broken either way.
No, I don't, at least not for me. I mean, I think the question is what fits best with the overall plan of the city, and I've got to rely on staff on that. I don't know. But, I mean, I will tell you, I opened this up and I'm like, wow, that's a dense development.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we will have things to talk about in terms of, is this the way to build this thing? But those issues are secondary to what are your final configuration. So, you know, at least that was my initial reaction.
With it showing the way it is right now, I can still see people going up to Rowan Road, going north and then going straight, coming down on 99th Street. Irregardless. If the traffic starts backing up any other way, they're gonna think they're gonna save time by going down. If it comes all the way straight down, all the way through to Vine, Clearview and all that.
I think my gut reaction, which I don't know whether I even want to say this one. I don't, it just seems like a whole lot of ineffective north-south traffic here if we don't do something different. That Rowan is in the right spot, but as far as the 103rd Street goes, but I don't see how it's gonna function very well without a full turn median. It just seems like that Street A is the right place to direct traffic. And the reason I hesitate to even mention this, because I don't see a good answer. It would be nice if Street A could swing over to Rowan as it goes to 95th. And I'll leave it there with no good ideas.
Maybe one thing to think about, and I don't know if there is a way to do it, but is there a possible connection to 99th Street from your dogleg left cul-de-sac? That possibility
Like
that you
from
at least
here?
have some connection to it?
From there?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just give another way to get out to 99th where you don't have to fight the Astra traffic?
That might be nice. That's what my concern is. There's gonna be so much traffic on Astra that
People are
all
gonna,
these extra people, it's gonna be tough for them, and I can understand,
they're gonna try and cut down 99.
right?
Was that road designed for that extra traffic?
Mhm. Well, it's gonna be so congested at a roundabout too, you know how people feel about
Oh, yeah.
those, so.
I guess, yeah, just, that's a really good point. I think that's a great idea, to consider that. The other thing, is 80-acre parcel, if you look in other areas of the county and other, areas where you have, single family that's dense like this, you typically do see connections, to those half quarter to the eighth mile points on Collector Road. So it's kind of another, just like,
Which is
more
334
connectivity tends to
houses.
be better than less connectivity, I think, and just from a overall general principle, you know, from emergency management services, things like that. The connected grid networks tend to operate good because it provides alternate routes to traffic and things like that. So,
Good idea.
good
I don't know if it's
suggestion.
good or not, but that's
think
good.
so.
One thing that occurred to me was that if there was another connection to make to 99, it wouldn't necessarily be the straight shot out of Astra.
Yeah.
But it would give
But
them
at least a
another
connection there.
alternative.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you for humoring staff with that.
Yeah.
We didn't want to call it a fight, but
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it, and seriously, I don't mean to discourage you bringing these things to planning commission, I think it's fine, I also don't wanna get in a condition where, well, if you don't like it, what I'm telling you, you go ahead and take it to planning commission, I don't wanna get there.
yeah, right. Yeah, that was
I want
certainly not the tenor of the discussion.
you to be empowered to
Yeah.
do these things.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
So, could we have a motion to table? We did, this is we did, there's some public notice to this, so if you could make a motion to table this until the April meeting.
Make a motion that we table this until the April meeting.
Second.
moved and seconded, any further discussion? Roll call.
Schultz,
Yes.
Meadow,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Huggins.
Yes.
Motion carries to table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, new item 7B.
I can just briefly address this as I put in the email. Part of the public hearing process for this RHID, for the project you were just looking at, is the planning commission needs to be sent a copy of the resolution that was passed by the city council scheduling the public hearing for April 17th. Really just wanted to give you guys an opportunity if you had any comment or feedback on that you would want considered at the public hearing. There's no official action to be taken. So, and essentially the RHID is similar to a tax increment financing where the applicant gets back a portion of the property taxes for making improvements, installing, public improvements in the development. So,
So statutorily, this is relatively new, right?
yes,
And
yeah,
the statute requires you to provide a certification to the planning commission of this hearing, I guess is what it is, the resolution.
right,
So we've fulfilled the statutory requirements by presenting it tonight.
yes.
In addition to that, I guess you're suggesting that we can make some comments on the record that may be shared at the public hearing.
If anyone so desires, I'm not saying you need to,
Well, I'll
just.
give you an earful if you want it, but
Only if it's relevant.
I mean, but my comments are not as a planning commissioner, they're just as a citizen. I mean, but to me, I am distressed with the possibility that at least the development as the development plan that's described really has no timeframes, has very little teeth to it. You know, from working with the housing group early on, my position was if we want to do is push development and get these things done, we need to put some timeframes on these things. And to the extent that this is an open-ended approval of you know, those kinds of things would trouble me. But the resolution itself doesn't say that. I'm sure the devil's in the details, but. You know.
No, good point. I do think that's pertinent to provide that. There will be a development agreement that will be part of this, and the development agreement will hold their feet to time periods
I
and.
would think it should have a wasting benefit. If they don't get it started, then they don't get the full benefit. I mean, if what we're trying to do is encourage people to build these things today rather than sit on them for 20 years or get it approved and flip it to somebody else and just make their money and be gone, we really need to design it that way. But that's a political issue. That's up for the council. It's certainly not me telling you that anything as a planning commissioner, but that's just my 2 cents.
I know Dan's had that concern too, you know, on development, on different things for the council, is that they need to have a time frame on it, so I like that concept.
Only because I promised you in your fall, I'll give you another one. I really don't like doing these things in greenfield. I think that these should be designed and we should be encouraging infield development, or in-town development. This example is a really great one where we're gonna add 340 houses. I don't know how many children that may be. You're gonna have buses, we're gonna have to add patrols, we're gonna have sheriff costs, we're gonna have fire development costs, all of these other costs. And when we're putting it out, that's not near anything except the plan. As opposed to encouraging people to live where all those services are, we're making it very expensive for us. So, you know, as a matter of policy, I wouldn't encourage this. But I do get if the reason we're doing it is because they're gonna start turning ground next week and we're gonna get this thing done in 3 years or 6 years or whatever he said, make that happen.
I thought you were gonna give me an earful for my K-State colors.
Don't get him started.
We'll do that off the record.
I had to put on Royals tonight because I don't have much to brag about.
Oh, no, let's not go there.
It's baseball season.
Yeah.
Anyway, with no other comments.
I had a couple of comments. I was surprised at the exhibits. I mean, when I read on page 2 the description of what Exhibit D is and what Exhibit E is, I really don't find what I expected at all. You know, I think this section 2, it says a description of the housing and public facility projects that are proposed for D. And it says a summary of contractual assurances by the developer and the comprehensive feasibility analysis is contained in Exhibit E. And when I read those, I don't see any of that. I mean, I see a general statement that, you know, we've all agreed that it's okay.
The contractual assurances will be in that development agreement, and that's something we're working on now, and it'll be available at the public hearing, but it's not available at the moment.
So let me join you saying we'd love to see the detail on it. We hope that our elected officials will do the right thing and do their homework.
We support their.
We do support their efforts.
I'm just curious what the difference is between this proposal and a TIF.
Well, this only applies to single-family homes, and.
So the townhomes and the stuff would not apply to this?
Correct, it's just the single-family, yeah.
That's why we need an R1A, we need to do 50-foot lots.
Yeah. And TIF, you can't use TIF for residential development.
Right, right.
Maybe there's a policy reason for that.
Well, they're actually 52-foot wide lots.
52.
Look at all this room for activities you've got in this plot.
Stir in a pot.
Well, I didn't mean to grab the soapbox. If you guys have any other comments, please feel free.
How about you,
both covered it very well. We were happy to stand behind them.
Thank you.
So Patrick, in the future, I guess we'll just put these on as like a notice issue?
Maybe,
That
and
satisfies that?
get it in the
Certification?
packet, so if, if there is
Okay.
comments after review, but yeah, I think that's fine, just include it in the
I
packet.
think the idea was to spread wide notice, so anybody who might have an interest would know about it. So now
Yeah.
everyone's aware that this is before the city council,
April 17th.
April 17th.
So this question, if this does not pass on April 17th, are they coming back with the preliminary plat?
We'll find out.
Yeah,
Don't know.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I believe that concludes our agenda. Any other business that you'd like to attend to? Just
FYI, I will not be here.
Oh, okay. We have a quorum issue. Everybody else planning on being here? Okay. Next meeting?
April 22nd.
April 22nd.
None.
I have not looked that far ahead.
No cruises planned.
April 22nd. I only thing I got on my calendar is the DeSoto Planning Commission, so I guess I'm good. Good. Okay. Motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any objection? We're adjourned.